All right. Hello, everybody. This is Justice with Jax, Season 3, Episode 5. We've got yet another wonderful human being available for us to speak with today. And today is Friday, July 25, 2025, actually. And so it's been 1 year, 11 months, 25 days, or 725 days since the case Armendariz and Chinook Center versus City of Colorado Springs has been filed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a journey. We're coming up on 2
doubt.
years. And so I want to pass it over to this amazing guest that I have today so you can introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, your affiliations in the community.
Hi, I'm Kandy Lewis. She, her pronouns, and I'm with the Colorado Springs Homeless Union.
Thank you, Kandy. And you were saying recently you've joined some other community boards, committees, so we can save that for in a little while because I know that's newer on your plate. But so thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, absolutely. And, you know, a little bit about Justice with Jax, how we try to approach things here is that I'm giving some updates on this key civil rights case that happened here in Colorado Springs. A lot of it had to do with working for housing justice, at least protesting for that in our community. And, you know, here we are years later where the journey continues and we're still in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit. If we've mentioned on the show, if you've been in the legal system or watched it play out, it can be a kind of hurry up and wait situation.
That's for sure.
Yes, and so that's where we remain still, even with the 2-year anniversary of the case's filing approaching.
My gosh.
And I like to share that because that's the point. Again, part of this show is telling the story of the case, and so it's giving that narrative to people to help them see the big picture of it. But the other piece is lifting up community voices and talking about kind of local events and especially, again, what's close to our hearts: justice, activism, building community, organizing. And so just a few little things I wanted to share on that front, and feel free to jump in, Kandy, if you have more to add. But, you know, again, I've mentioned where we are kind of with all the political stuff going on for me has been a really terrible reflection on my case that it was kind of foreshadowing for now. And part of that element for me was when the cops came to arrest me at my home, confiscate all my electronic devices, leave me in a, device blackout where I couldn't even call anybody. The law enforcement that came wore masks, much like, and not all of them, but a portion of them, because I guess it was a FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, right? This idea of federal enforcement being masked and deciding who's terrorists, not by the law, but because of whatever their agenda is. So that has really struck me lately because I'm glad to see more public officials say why does ICE have to be masked? But the truth is those kind of law enforcement agencies have been doing that prior to ICE becoming what some would argue, myself included, their own version of a terrorist organization because they're really scaring the crap out of people. And so reflecting on that, this week, the community organized, which I was proud to join, to talk to the county commissioners, which, Kandy, you've been a wonderful shoulder to lean on, a listening ear. I'm running for county commission. So I made sure you and I have talked about what it's like to make public comment, and maybe your legs feel like jelly, and that's totally normal, because the things that we organized to really force the county commission to listen to, put it on their agenda, because they're not going to do it themselves. We the people, right? This July, the ACLU and the ACLU of Colorado, who are currently representing my case with Chinook Center, they released information from a FOIA request that showed there were going to be 6 potential locations for ICE detention facilities in Colorado.
I did see something about that.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's scary sounding. I can tell you from the one of the truest places in my heart that I believe in the prison industrial complex abolition. Prison for profit is wrong, and part of the problem. And so we had details about the facilities they're thinking about putting here, or considering in Colorado Springs. One was the Cheyenne Mountain Center, which was owned by the GEO Group, which are, I would call them, well-known forces in this prison for profit scheme, because they're a private corporation. And then they lost the contract with that facility, and it closed in March 2020. I don't want them to get that contract again, No. And also, there's a second location. They called it the Colorado Springs Migrant Detention Facility, which is owned by yet another corporation called the Baptiste Group, which is a former skilled nursing facility there. And what really worried me about reading about this is that company, the Baptiste Group, they operate like corporations do all across the country. And in 2021, the state of Tennessee suspended that corporation's license due to arrests of workers on charges of sexual battery and child abuse at a migrant children's facility. Hell no. That does not belong in our community, right? So shout out to everyone who organized and forced the county commission to listen. And you know what? The truth from what I heard is I think our organizing makes a difference. And like we know that speaking out makes a difference, but we still have a county commission that it's frustrating when you go to that length to really put yourself out there as a member of the public, and then it's like, were they even listening? So that's some of the feedback that I got about that moment at county commission, that it didn't seem like they were listening, about how worried we were about ICE's abuse of power and what that means for our democracy. And so, Kandy, do you have any thoughts to kind of add on that conversation?
Well, it kind of goes along with our philosophy at the Homeless Union. Everybody is human beings, and they deserve to be treated as such.
Absolutely.
And in the fight that we've undertaken, we have had a few small wins, but I think honestly it's not giving up.
Yes, absolutely.
And sometimes, even though we don't believe that they are listening or hearing, I should say, because
those are two different things.
Yes, absolutely. The persistence will pay off. It might take little tiny steps, but it will pay off.
I love how you put that, and that's why, as I mentioned to you, what I love about doing this work for the show is I get to sit with amazing people. Some of them are my friends, and I feel a kinship. And one of the kinships I felt with you is that resilience, which is like, you think you're going to get over on me, you have another thing coming. Like, I'm going to stay in this fight, because, and that's a really important thing about when we say fight, it's like we're fighting for justice. We're fighting to recognize all human beings and the dignity of our lives, no human being being illegal, right? And I think, one of the things for the subject of housing and people who are facing homelessness, experiencing that, is that yet not another way that people are dehumanized? And some of the laws, I know recently, and refresh me on this, Kandy, if you, I think you would have more details, but in Colorado Springs, we have like this sit and lie ordinance stuff going on at the city council level. And I think it's so important to hear your voice and the voices of the union talking about this element that we can never accept, which is the dehumanization of anyone, including people who don't have a home.
Exactly. Because this country is truly built on people who didn't have a home to start with. And they were all immigrants. Not all of us started here. So that technically makes us all illegals, if you think about it.
Yeah, that word, oh boy. But if the people who want to use that word to talk about human beings, which I don't recommend, that's some of the comments that I shared with the county commission. I said, for those of us, myself included, with heritage indigenous to North America, this is our land. Like, the argument is, frankly, your ancestors are the ones who immigrated over here. So it definitely goes that deep to the history of this country, for sure.
That's for sure. And you know, with the homeless union, our biggest issues are we have been fighting for diversity in shelter options. We have been fighting for access to restrooms, trash cans, and year-long free transportation, public transportation. We've gotten a couple of little small wins here and there. As far as the restrooms go, they tell us that we have access to 4 new restrooms that are functional and unlocked.
When you say that, that's probably the city mostly? The city of Colorado Springs? Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Vermaho Park is supposed to be one of them. That's been locked up for years. Nobody's had access to it. But yet the lights are still on, the water is still on, and they're still paying this part.
Yikes.
And they would rather pay that.
And waste that, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And deny people access to it where it could be used. America the Beautiful, the restrooms there are also supposed to be functional, but they're always locked. And there's always kids there, you know, and they should
Families.
they should take that into consideration.
Right.
Just like the clamshell at Acacia Park. Supposedly they're unlocked as well, but in order to get into them, you have to have somebody let you in, and nobody wants to leave either their business to go over there and let somebody else in, or they don't want to deal with anybody that might be around the clamshell. And they're really judgmental. And it sucks, you know.
Yeah.
We all breathe the same air. We have the same wants. We have the same needs. So why is anybody any better?
I absolutely agree again that, you know, everybody's, at the risk of sounding it heady, everybody's freedom, our liberation is all tied up together. And that includes everyone who doesn't have a home and needs to be recognized with the dignity of a human being.
Yes.
Like, it's simple to me. That part, the housing issue and how we get there, okay, I'll admit there are complexities, but one of the big things that I'm about, and I think we've talked about, is I firmly believe that local elected officials, city, county, should not be washing their hands of the issue of the spectrum of housing crisis, right? Because there are needs for people who don't have housing, are tenants, and even people in HOAs are struggling with dues and insurance and all those things, right? So there's a lot of different ways people need help. And I want to talk about, you know, you mentioned, of course, like, human beings have needs, basic needs, right? Like human rights. And so could you share a little bit about how and when the Colorado Springs Homeless Union was founded?
We started in the fall of 2023. We started for housing justice and equality in treatment, we'll say. There's probably 10 or 15 constant members. We have protested the criminalization of being homeless. The sit-lie ordinance, they expanded the area around it, and the wording is really, really strange. From 7 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, you are not supposed to be sitting, kneeling, nothing, even if you're just tying your shoe.
Yeah. Which, I mean, think about the parades we have in the downtown areas where people are sitting on the curb and things like that. The wording is, there are instances when we just have bad laws, bad ordinances, where the wording is so broad, it's really not helpful to anyone, but it's being used as a political tool to kind of meet this horrible, to me, what I would call is like a stereotype. There's a lot of assumptions about homeless people. And so I imagine, this is my inference, is that it's sort of a political tool, so the city like looks like they're doing something, right? You know?
That one, I can honestly say, is a true smokescreen. From January 1st of this year until April 30th, the HOT team alone made 608 arrests just the hot team, 25% of those were failure to appears and trespassing and stuff. 4% were felonies. And that's the only information they would give out. There's a big gap missing.
And let's talk about who the hot team is, because for people who haven't heard or think that it's July and it's hot, no, we're talking specifically, Kandy, do you want to explain who they are?
Yes, they are the original homeless outreach team. The only thing that they honestly help people with is taking them to jail.
And they are they called a unit of the Colorado Springs Police Department, or
yes.
How do they operate? Yes.
We have tried to find out their operating budget, and it's not very clear.
Not a lot of transparency from the police. I'm shocked.
From the city, period.
That was sarcasm, just in case. But.
I completely agree, though. Personally, I would like to see the hot team disbanded because, one, they target the wrong people. The unhoused community are falsely represented in every aspect. You know, just because somebody is out on the streets, and whether it's their fault that they're there or whatever the circumstances may be, first and foremost, they're people.
Absolutely. And
where I live at Greenway Flats, and from my bedroom window, I have seen the police go through, not even get out of the cars, just use the bullhorn and tell the people, you have an hour to get out of here. You're blocking something.
Wow.
And
not really building community relationship, that technique.
No. And not offering any help except for a free ride to jail.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really sad because that's their fundamental values, supposedly, when they were formed. And at one point, they...
Right, and let's put a finer point on that. So the hot team, and I guess it's... The T in hot is for team, right? So that always makes me laugh. But hot, they are newer as kind of a unit, an initiative, whatever, of CSPD. But part of the big, as I understood it, and you correct me, Kandy, but part of the big, I think... piece of adding them was actually getting people in touch with social services and resources to move out of homelessness. But it sounds like from the homeless union's perspective, that is not what HOT has done.
No. There is also a department from the fire department that does outreach, and they have
heard about them. Yeah,
the HOP is really, really instrumental in a lot of people getting help.
What does HOP stand for? Do you
Homeless
remember?
Outreach Program?
Okay, got it.
And the homeless union actually advocated to get them more funding, more permanent funding.
Before City Council?
Yes. And we were actually successful in that. And
congratulations. See, that's what I'm talking
more
about.
More for them. I mean,
yeah.
They're really good people. They offer medical assistance. They care. It's not about how many people can you shove into a car to take to jail.
Well, they are not tied into that prison industrial complex, right?
Thank goodness.
They're the fire department, which serves a different type of public safety function, right? And to your point, those people need to be resourced up, because then they are helpers in our community, spreading resources to other people who need to be resourced up, which is folks, suffering from being without housing, which is such a basic fundamental need, right? That's part of why I got busted for this U.S. civil rights case that we have, is that we were out there because we were all wearing allegedly red communist shirts that said housing is a human right. I believe that with all my heart and soul and my brain, because here's my big thing, Kandy, and you chime in on this, but I really want to put a fine point on what you said, being that we're human beings. Again, the dignity of that, and the truth that I feel should be repeated so very much is that most of us are closer to being homeless in a few bad weeks months, then we'll never be as close to being the billionaires that Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk are. So really, like, check your ego, check your empathy, check your intelligence, because that's really the reality that we are all facing. So that's why our liberation is all tied in together, because you being safe is me being safe in our community together. What do you think, Kandy?
I agree, because just like people say it takes a village to raise a child, I truly believe that it would be such a better place if everybody had a sense of community. You know,
it's healing. I truly believe that.
I agree. Every day, my goal is to make at least one person smile. And if I can do that,
I love
I'm
that
golden.
about you.
Thank you. But, you know, a lot of the reason that the unhoused community do not respond very well to the HOT team is because of that threat of incarceration. And if they were to...
It's a huge risk.
If they were to remove that threat, more people would be apt to accept help or seek it out. You know, even if it started with just somebody listening, you know, understanding what's going on instead of, you know, well, why are you out here? Or what do you do to society?
Or just get out, you know.
Right,
like, that's
you know.
not even really a conversation.
Right. And people are just a heartbeat away from being in that situation. And I truly wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Right.
Except the ones that deserve it.
Well, I could understand where you're coming from around who needs to have the experience of being homeless and really check their bullshit about their rhetoric, because, you know, I feel like our politics is very polarized, and the issue of housing also polarized in a way, and partisan. And to me, it's really frustrating. Like I mentioned earlier, the people who have a responsibility to serve the public should be treating it like the crisis it is. And again, not easy, because it's a spectrum of issues when it comes to housing. But when it comes to, we can definitely focus on some of our most vulnerable, right? I feel like that's a pretty solid logic when it comes to trying to help people escape homelessness. And so, if you don't mind, I would love to hear a little bit more, and I think people probably already falling in love with you listening to this. But obviously, to come to be in the leadership of the homeless union, you've had lived experience being homeless. You live at Greenway Flats, and for folks who are not aware, can you let them know what that is and just a little bit about your story of how you arrived to be a leader in the Colorado Springs Homeless Union?
Greenway Flats is a permanent supportive housing unit. I believe there are 85 units. There's supposed to be a full staff. We have one caseworker now.
The nonprofits are suffering because this is all operated by a nonprofit, right?
Springs Rescue Mission owns Greenway Flats.
Okay.
They paid off their loan early in order to be able to completely take control.
Okay.
Up until last week, our evening shift was covered by security guards. And every half hour, they were patrolling each floor. And if there was something outside, they're taking a picture of it so they can report you. And there's a lack of compassion, for one. I was involved in a focus group for the downtown area. And upon their invitation, once I began answering questions that they had posed to me, my mic got muted deliberately.
Yeah, you were too honest for them. I empathize with that.
Their truth hurt, but if they
the
didn't,
truth can hurt.
The person who's in charge of Springs Rescue Mission was in this virtual meeting. And he says one thing over the computer, but when he's face to face with people, and he's walked by me 2-3 different times and looked at me as if I wasn't even there.
Ouch.
And I'm thinking to myself, at least acknowledge.
Yeah. Again, the human respect, dignity piece of things. And it sounds like if that was a way that you were trying to express some of the concerns, it sounds like maybe they don't have do they have any structure to hear from residents, like a resident meeting to have a conversation with the management?
We actually have been working on a tenant association.
Oh, great.
As far as Greenway
for
goes.
That specific complex.
Yes,
yeah.
Because the management, the caseworkers, none of them can be involved in any of the talks. But when I bring it up to people, they have all of these complaints and issues.
Right.
And I tell them, the only way that anything is going to get done is people have to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. We've had a fire there. We have... Originally, when I moved in, the washers and dryers were provided for the tenant at no cost.
Oh, right. I remember you mentioning this. Yeah.
Now they have pay-as-you-go washer and dryer, which are $2 per load for each machine. They have a tablet because they're digital, and you're not allowed access to that tablet on the weekend because there are no caseworkers there.
Oh my goodness. So when everyone does their laundry, which is usually the weekend because people have jobs and lives, there's no access to
No, and that's laundry. When they have to pay it.
There's issues to address there, and it sounds like there are, to me, what I hear, which makes a ton of sense, is there are also efforts to, again, organize in really what's your neighborhood. And in this case, it would be a focus, again, on housing justice. And, that's a little bit of what brought us together, actually, right, is this common passion for housing justice, because we did work together for the Colorado Springs pro-housing partnership, which has also been supportive of the homeless union, right? And so we're all kind of connected because, again, that's the philosophy of how we get stronger and stay consistent on bringing justice, I think.
We're stronger together.
Together, yes.
The more the community comes together and works hand in hand, the more solutions we can come up with. And to say that a few of them are actually hearing us is huge in itself, because we're not being brushed aside. For the most part, most of the unhoused community are swept under the rug and forgotten about. And there is such a shortfall as far as housing here. There are so many buildings that I would be willing to bet don't even have 10% occupancy. But yet there are people out on the street dying because it's too cold or they have nowhere to go. And I guess you could say, because it's not happening in their circle, it doesn't matter. But it does matter.
It doesn't, right. And I think what you are describing is something I have been thinking about just this week, because I live in what I call we live in what I call the chaos era, right? And so unfortunately, there's just so many instances, I think, where people are overwhelmed and they're looking away from these terrible things that are happening because there's so many of them. And that by no means excuses it, but I think it's kind of part of how human beings react sometimes and that's the part that to me is really frustrating in trying to be someone that people trust me with in leadership. Is you've got to face reality even though it hurts, even though it's complicated. And I feel like too often some of our elected officials in power are just willing to act like it's not happening. And that, I know I have a pet peeve of feeling ignored. So, but Kandy, can you share a little bit more about, your own background, like you said, where you have this everything you're saying, I can tell, is from the lived experience that you've had. And I know some of when we met, which was so powerful to me, is I feel very privileged that I have not had the experience of being homeless. And when I met you, it struck me, again, the joy in you, but some of what you've experienced, which is, I think you told me, it would have been your first place maybe ever or in a long time.
It is my first complete space. There was either a spouse or my kids or my in-laws. There was always somebody else. And as of July 1st, I have officially been in my own space for a year. And
awesome.
It still kind of strikes me funny because I'm not quite used to it, but I'm so grateful for it. I came to the Springs in 2015. I was residentially challenged, is how I put it, until last year, and I didn't even know I was up for an apartment. My honey was being put in the back of an ambulance when I was told that I was approved for an apartment.
Oh my goodness. And
it didn't honestly register with me until like 4 or 5 hours later. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of sat there and said, oh, wow, my space. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do Thanksgiving dinner, my first Thanksgiving dinner in the apartment. I fed 17 people, 95% of which were from the building itself. I'm able to get some of the ones that wouldn't normally interact with anyone.
Yeah.
They came down, and that's huge in itself.
Absolutely.
And just that human element, somebody who's not looking down their nose at you or judging you for past decisions or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Yesterday is over. You cannot change it. But there's always a brand new start every day. Absolutely. And that's what you make of it. And a lot of people don't have much of anything at all, but I guarantee you they wouldn't have to have it. I mean, they would give it to anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what drives me with the union and just people in general, because there is so much ugly out there. And I would much rather make somebody smile than piss them off.
Amen.
It takes my muscles to frown anyway. See? There we go. It's just, for me, something that I go by. I never meet a stranger, just new friends. Yeah. And it's all about the smiles you spread and the hearts you touch.
Absolutely. I love that. And it vibes. One of the things I like to say is, like, kindness is free. Like, can we add more of that to the world? It's easier than you think. Yes. And so, well, can I touch on some of what I hear you talking about that stands out to me too, and it's an effort that the Homeless Union is doing that I really speaks to the writer, the journalist in me, like storytelling and just writing can be therapeutic. I love that you have this unhoused and unnamed, the official newsletter of the Colorado Springs Homeless Union. So tell me a little bit more about that. And part of why it stands out to me is, again, this feeling seen, the community connection, voices rising up together. That's why I love this project that you're doing.
Thank you. I can honestly say it's kind of my baby. I picked the name because that's what we truly are. We're unnamed and we're unhoused. Most of the time we don't matter. And it might be an outside view, but even if one person cares and the people know that somebody cares, it truly gives them just a little bit.
That matters.
It really does.
Absolutely.
Just the little tiny things. Like when I was unhoused, for females, it's kind of tough not having a place to clean up, having to deal with female issues,
Right.
and for me, I'd keep baby wipes, body spray. A lot of females will not like the idea of used underwear, but in that situation, it was presented if they should happen to need it, and 9 times out of 10 they would take it.
Yeah.
Because clean is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of goes back to the golden rule. You treat people the way you want to be treated. And if more people stuck to that, it'd be so much better.
Truly, truly. And that's one of the things that gets me. It's like that sounds simple, and really mostly it is. And I just wish most people or some people would stop acting like that's such a challenge. It's called empathy. That's what it is.
A lot of people have this feeling of entitlement.
Yes.
And they don't realize how quickly their whole world could be shattered. When they do the sweeps on the camps, people lose documentation, they lose family photos, they lose stuff that they cannot get back. And even if it's just a little small thing that they can hold on to, it's huge for them. So
Of course.
I may not be able to rent a storage unit to put people's stuff in, but I keep little small things. And I tell them when I see them, I still have this or I still have that, and the smile that I get from that lets me know that they feel a little bit better. If I could take and round up every unhoused person and put them in Greenway dining room, I would, and just sit right there with them.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do last year when it was real, real cold. But of course, it's not allowed. If I had the opportunity, that would be the first thing to change. Because there's just so much that can be avoided if people just made the effort.
Yes, I think so too. Effort, it takes time and energy, and sometimes people aren't willing to contribute that as we wish, right? One of the things I'm hearing, and definitely, add more to this as you wish, but what I appreciate about the Homeless Union is right off the bat, you name some very specific, and I feel I'm not on city council. I don't know the numbers. Let's just being clear that don't have the information, but one of the things that I imagine is, to me, the things that you named are pretty doable. It's just about putting in the effort, because it's not like you're asking for, I would say, a huge law change where everybody's rent is free, right? And so I'm noticing that, which I think is awesome, because that's a part of getting things done, right? You got to have some specifics, know what you're asking for. But the other piece of it I want to hear from you too is I imagine, and I know I love the slogan of kind of the newsletter where every heartbeat deserves a home. And so there's a bigger picture to this too. So do you mind just talking a little bit more about how the Homeless Union does its work like that, where you've come together, your members, you have specific things, but there's probably, I'm imagining, a longer term vision kind of plan you may have too.
At this point, the little wins are really kind of crucial, because it's a step in the right direction. The biggest thing is the housing shortfall. I had an idea of, I don't understand why people, if they can come together for Habitat for Humanity and build a house, why not utilize the people that are in the unhoused community? They are brilliant, talented, amazing people given the chance. And most of these apartment buildings that I've seen, there's nobody in them.
Right, especially I think in the downtown area, right, is where we're getting a lot of those. I see some in my part of town with the southeast, but I think to put a finer point on it, what you're naming, Kandy, is for sure we are seeing multiple like clusters of all these really like not affordable
Eyesores.
they're I we have such a beautiful skyline, right, that it's hard like to add. It doesn't need much else, certainly not these overpriced apartments. And my beef with that is also apartments are not ownership, and people need to being able to have an asset like property is a way to help people, acquire wealth, even help their children, generational wealth, things like that. And so I think there is a risk concern, and I'd open anyone wants to email me to learning more about it. But when we talk about having housing, I think, like you mentioned, that Habitat for Humanity, one of those key pieces, those people then own those homes. Mm-hmm. They work to build their own homes, and then they own them. And I think that's a pretty cool idea. And I think, again, that you had with regard to, seeing if there's a programmatic way to help unhoused people contribute to the building of their own home, that, again, to me, that ownership piece is key. And I wonder if it's, again, a matter of effort. And so let's keep that conversation going as we do our housing justice work.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it, people just need a place to be. Mm-hmm. And if they have a home base where, one, they can take showers, they're going to go look for a job. Mm-hmm. If they have somewhere to put their stuff.
Stability, right?
Just even a smidge, just a taste, something to get them started. Because there's the misconception that so many of the unhoused community want to be out there because they don't want to give up their drugs or their weapons or, whatever the scenario might be. That's so false. Mm-hmm. Because there are so many out there that are so tired of the chase and having to
the
worry.
Struggle to survive.
Yeah, and that's it's not even a life, it's an existence.
It's barely surviving. Yeah.
Give them a place to start.
I appreciate that. And when it comes to all those stereotypes, again, emphasizing that, like, quit your bullshit. You're closer to being homeless than you are to being a billionaire as your normal average person, right? Face that reality. And number two, like, yes, I have definitely been in spaces where I'm pretty pissed off, where, like, and I'm going to say it, I've heard it a lot from, like, police officers, right? And I've heard it, too, from some of the CDOT folks maybe I used to know that go out there and do the sweeps. After the sweeps, they clean up the trash, right?
They make more of a mess than the camps themselves.
They can, I bet. Yeah. And so those perspectives that are part of this conversation, they can't be discounted. But I have my grave doubts that you can't just meet one person and assign your experience conversation with them because they want to be off the grid and things like that, and act like everyone who is also at that camp or with that experience has that same resistance to being a part of society. Just like you said, I have my serious doubts that the majority of people are choosing to be homeless. Just stop with that.
And that's a lot of what we're trying to do as well, is we want to change the narrative. We want to change people's perspective because, there's a few bad apples, but that's in every demographic.
Look at the police. I'm going to tell you that.
Very true. But, I mean...
And when, let's say, look, just for the sake of one of the things I hold dear, accountability, right? Because the phrase, there's a few bad apples and the rest is they spoil the whole bunch. So that's a little bit what happens here, right? If there's a few bad apples who are used to create this false narrative, and so now you're doing the work to really combat that false narrative.
Yes. If they would take the time to get to know the people instead of automatically judging, it's a huge difference. I mean, a lot of the people that I have encountered as far as general society, half of them didn't realize that I was unhoused. Because of the way I carry myself or present myself or whatever the case may be. And
that's probably, not to generalize, but I feel like a lot of people who are homeless are actually living that kind of life where there's a good amount of people in their own lives that may not even know that that's this big thing going on in their life.
Absolutely. And when we don't have access to restrooms and cleaning up, trying not to present the norm as far as how people judge us, that's the whole issue. The only person who can judge us is our maker. And it's not my job. I wouldn't want the job to judge anybody.
You're better off not judging others, not comparing yourself to others. Like we've been, if people listening to this episode take one thing, like we've been saying, treat others how you would like to be treated. If you don't want to be judged, don't judge others. I think that's pretty fair.
Pretty direct.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about maybe how people can help support the Colorado Springs Homeless Union as it develops.
We meet every Thursday at Westside Cares, which is 2808 West Colorado Ave at 3 p.m. We also meet the second and fourth Monday at Penrose Library at 1:30. Everybody is welcome.
And you don't have to be homeless to go, but you should care about housing justice. We do need that.
That would be nice, but just the camaraderie that we have developed and the way, no matter what, we do stick together. If somebody else says something derogatory to one of our members, 9 times out of 10, there's somebody right there to back that person up because we're friends. It's not just about our living situation or
because you care about each other. Yeah,
somebody's got to.
Somebody's got to. I'm saying, and it sounds like solidarity to me, which is something we definitely believe in it on this show, and we've talked about. And so, I think this is one of the subjects, and we acknowledge on the podcast that part of what we try to do here is have a balance. And this is one of those subjects where I said, we talk about it, don't look away. It is really hard to look at, and it's not going to be an easy conversation. And so I appreciate you opening up a bit and sharing about, that you've had lived experience and, frankly, what the negative impact can be of how some of our society's norms dehumanize homeless people. That none of that is okay, and it's a hard, sad thing to face, but what we can take away is we're going to keep going so we can continue to make progress. And that's where on the show we like to add some balance. We've talked about these tough issues, some real talk. We also try to ask, what is good in your life? And what would you share with people? Again, and I feel like you're a perfect person to ask this since you're a literal almost sunshine rainbow combo in human form. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about what's going on with you and what makes you smile.
I refuse to let the bad crap control me, because if you do, you lose yourself along the way. And there's so many beautiful things. I mean, the fact that I am still breathing when I almost wasn't. I am a 10-year recovering heroin addict. I am still breathing because of my honey. I was sore for 2 weeks after the compressions, but they worked.
I'm so glad you're still with us.
Thank you. I am too, and as long as I am breathing, I'm blessed. And I can smile just because of that, because I'm still here, and because of the beautiful people in my life. I am a very wealthy woman, but not monetarily.
That doesn't impress us on this show.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I am very, very blessed to have the amazing people that I have in my life. And that keeps me smiling, including you.
Thank you.
You're
It
welcome.
is so likewise, and I feel the same. Again, well said, Kandy. You have a beautiful way with words, and I truly believe. And the cool part is, like, I'm pretty sure I'm quoted in the Gazette saying it, but my community is my wealth. That is my richness. And like I mentioned earlier, to me, I would testify myself that in community, sure, it's not perfect. We're human beings. We try to ideally put our principles before personalities. May not always happen. But even with all those things, I know that I have lived finding healing, solidarity, support in community. And that's a thing that I just hope to do no matter what work I'm doing, is I'm hoping to bring that healing and that community building. And I thank you for joining me and so many others here in this community for doing that work.
Thank you.
Of course.
It's definitely a learning experience, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, I have been fortunate enough to learn so many different things because it was aspects that I was never exposed to. I mean, I remember my civics classes and stuff like that, but I was never hands-on like I am now. And I don't think I could stop if I tried.
The bug has bit you.
Oh,
yes.
hardcore. Hardcore.
Yeah, there's a very, I would even call it spiritual, like it's about personal purpose, but there is an element of trying to serve and community build and be empathetic and recognize the dignity of everyone, that there's a light inside that builds. And I think you're born with a light inside, but you can help it grow and shine, magnify. And I feel like this work does that. And so we're going to keep going on. Yeah.
It might be baby steps, but at least they're steps.
Absolutely. Better than zero.
Yep. It's going to be a war between me and the cockroaches, and I'm going to win.
I love it when you remind me of that. That's right. That's right. Well, fantastic. Is there anything else you would like to add about the Homeless Union? For instance, do you have a website? Are people able to donate if they want to support your efforts?
They actually are. It's never really been a monetary issue. We have the Facebook page, which is the Colorado Springs Homeless Union. I post on there, and then I usually post the same things on my personal page. We have business cards where if somebody wanted to get in contact, there's several ways. Christy at Westside Cares is also one of our allies, and any messages or donations or anything like that could go through her and reach the proper channels.
Great. Okay, we'll put some links on this episode for that.
Absolutely. And when we get more production on the newsletters, we're trying to put them out in the community. But because of the fact that it's a fairly new startup, because this is only our 4th edition, there are not always very many contributions, but they're always from the heart.
Certainly.
And we're always seeking contributions, recipes, resources. In the latest edition, we had a couple of memorials for ones that we lost.
Yeah.
It's just about reaching out and trying to get the message out there.
It's about connection. Again, right? Communication. That's so key. And so, well, thank you so much, Kandy.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. I told you this was going to be fun. I knew it would. I loved hanging out with you.
Well,
and
absolutely.
So we're going to get some dinner after this.
Cool beans.
So this is where I remind folks that episodes of Justice with Jax are recorded as a member of the Studio 809 Podcast Collective at the Next Us Community Co-working Space in downtown Colorado Springs. remember to ask yourself 2 questions. Who's telling your story? And how are you being the change you want to see in the world today? This is Justice with Jax, signing off.